let's talk players. What you saw from all of them. I want to start with everyone's favorite. He's on the cover of this podcast, the featured image, and Zay Flowers from BC. Wide receiver. He only practiced one day, I believe, but after what I saw from a few tapes of Hodges Tomlinson, I would say Zay Flowers was the highest, the top prospect at this thing out there. And what did you see from him on day one? And what do you think about the Patriots actually picking him at 14 if it's ever a possibility? Because that continues to get, turned out a little bit. I think that's a little bit too high for them. We talked about it last week, but what did you see from Flowers and what do you think of it?
So he was excellent that one day. And I love the mentality too, because he didn't practice the first day. He was out there, and I'll give him credit too. Like Hodges Tomlinson said he was there to interview, and I didn't see him on the field. He was one day he was there, in a sweatshirt. But the days Zay didn't practice, he was out there and he was involved. Yep. And I should say the same thing about Travis Dye as well. But I think Zay got out to the first day, wasn't practicing, kind of got that vibe of, all right, he thinks he knows who he is. And he said, you know what? They want a show, I'll give him a show. And I love that attitude. He put on a show. He really did. He was the one that stood out to me. Like, he was great in team drills and one-on-ones and all that. And he expected that.
Right.
And it's kind of weird to go off an individual drill. I try not to do this a lot because there's not a ton to be gained. But he ran the gauntlet drill, which is that thing they do at the combine where the quarterbacks line up, 10 yards apart from each other. Wide receiver runs down, catch the ball here, drop it, catch the ball here, drop it. And just the way he moved through that, adjusting to the ball, he just, turning his body, he just glided. He never broke stride, and it was just really impressive to see. Now, all right, so as for the Patriots drafting him, I don't see it. I don't see how it's going to happen unless they trade down in the first round, because we do our tiers, right? And in terms of that, like, quick, shifty slot receiver who's not the biggest, it's Jordan Addison's. I still take Addison over Flowers. I think Flowers is
I think so too.
We'll see what happens when they get to the 40s, but I just, Addison's a little more polished. He runs the ball a little bit stronger. And by the way, people are wondering where Jackson Smith and Jigba is on that. He's his own thing. I think he's the best wide receiver in this class.
As do I.
But Jordan Addison should be there at 14. I would be very surprised if he's not. And if you're going to take Zay Flowers at 14, why wouldn't you take Jordan Addison?
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to me. And then 46 is going to be way too late. He's going to be a first round pick, talking about Zay.
Yeah.
Maybe if he trips up a little bit, you like Christian Barmore, that move, you trade up in the second round to get him. But the only thing left is his stock's only going to go up.
Yeah,
if he falls that much, it's because he ran a bad 40. And if he ran a bad 40, is that really the guy you want? Because he needs to be fast. So I just don't see how they make it happen unless they trade back in the first round. I will tell you this. So Zay Flowers only practices one day. Patriots are running that Bill O'Brien offense. They need that quick, shifty slot receiver who steps in. Demario Douglas from Liberty.
Okay.
And, we're going to do the tiers. He's a few tiers down. Like after Zay, I get into, Tank Dell in that group. The next tier, and coming into the week, Demario Douglas was a projected late day 3 pick. He should not be anymore. He should be moving up into that top 150 range because he was awesome. Great speed, great quickness. I thought his routes were very crisp. He ran one route. It's on my Twitter. I don't know if it was a deep post and over, whatever you want to call it. He came out of that break so crisp. The cornerback literally fell flat on his face trying to catch up with him. Like, he's you watch the route, Douglas kind of leaning outside, like not really overcommitting, but he's leaning a bit on the corner who has outside leverage. And the corner's kind of feeling it. And then boom, he's cut to the middle of the field and the corner's down. So I thought Demario Douglas was really impressive. If they want that guy, but they want to take a tackle, they want to take a corner, right? With those premium picks, Demario Douglas is a guy who should be on their radar. I thought he was excellent. Trey Flowers was the best player at this event.
Zay Flowers.
Zay Flowers, yes.
Trey Flowers, former Patriot. Zay Flowers.
Again, because I'm looking at Trey Dean's name here on the top of my list. We'll get to him, but
yep.
Zay Flowers may have been the most impressive player at this event, but I don't know that any player exceeded the expectation was for Zay Flowers to be the best player there. There wasn't necessarily room for him to exceed expectations.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Fair. Yeah.
On the offensive side of the ball, I don't know there was a player that exceeded expectations that did more for their draft stock than Demario Douglas from Liberty did.
Not to take away from Douglas, but the other receiver I want to ask you about, and from what I saw from both watching film and on Twitter and just sort of, watching from afar, was Justin Shorter from Florida, who's 6'3", 225. I tweeted out a clip of him where he just put a corner on his behind, ran right by him. And the other thing I liked from him, if you go to my Twitter and check out the clip of Shorter, is once he runs out of bounds and gets forced out, he still kept running towards the end zone. So he has he wants to score no matter what. That's what you do in practice. He was impressive this week. A lot of the Florida guys were impressive, like Dean and Cox as well. But what do you think of Shorter? Because I went to look back at him from what he did at Florida, and he wasn't superb in college, but he really looked to show out this week.
Yeah, and I mean the point about Florida, the best schools at this thing were Florida had a great week.
Yeah,
we'll get to Louisville. Louisville had an outstanding week. Michigan State came in strong, and Minnesota had a really good week. On Shorter, so it was the way they set it up was interesting because there were a lot of big corners and big receivers in this game. And I don't, normally I look at a guy like that in a game like this and I would say, well, was he just dominating because of his size? But he was facing a lot of really big corners. So that was interesting. You talk about the motor. There was a play. It was the last play of day 2, and the Patriots did that thing they do in camp, right? Where it's the offense versus the defense.
Yep.
And the losers do push-ups, and he runs a double move, Shorter, beats the corner, the ball's underthrown. He comes back to it, makes a diving catch. Most guys, college guys, you make a diving catch, you're down. That's college football. Shorter knew NFL rules, got right back up, ran into the end zone. Final play practice. Awesome. It's on the Shrine Bowl Twitter. He made a couple other highlight catches during the week. He certainly was impressive. We're going to have to see what he runs. Right. It was really interesting. Me and Evan talked to Eric Galco, who's been on this show, who runs the Shrine Bowl. We talked to him after the last practice, and he said that he thinks both Shorter and Bryce Ford-Wheaton, who everybody knows I love, are going to get DK Metcalf comps once we get closer to the draft. Now, that felt a bit lofty for me. Now, if Shorter runs a 4.3, I see it.
Right.
I don't know out there that he had 4.3 speed, but I mean, that's kind of the prototype you're looking at. Big body, strong athlete. Like a lot of people liked A.T. Perry coming into this week from Wake Forest.
Yep.
And he had a really good first day in the non-padded practices. And he's big, like tall, but he's not built. He's not quite as like thin as Tyquan Thornton, but it's a similar build. And so you look at a guy like that, comes out when the pads aren't on. He was excellent. One-on-ones where there's not a ton of contact, he was good, but he sort of disappeared in team. And he got bodied by some bigger receivers. Whereas Justin Shorter, like they're both 6'3", but Justin Shorter's ripped. Justin Shorter, honestly, it took me until the end of the first practice to figure out he was a wide receiver. I kept thinking he was a tight end because he's built like one.
Right.
So that's a guy you look at and you're like, all right, yeah, he's just bullying everybody. Is that the level of competition or is that who he is? So, and that's what this week is about. A guy like Douglas, a guy like Shorter, who maybe weren't on the radar. You don't necessarily make your whole evaluation off of it, but you see them do what they did. And Mike, like you said, you went back and you looked at the Florida tape. All right, this guy wasn't on my radar, but he should be.
Yeah.
What did I miss? Or what is he doing differently? Like with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he totally went to work on his mechanics. He went into the lab and he was throwing the ball with great zip, balls coming out quick. There was that great piece from Connor Orr in SI back in December, Mike. I don't know if you read it, about Brock Purdy, where he talked about how Brock Purdy, immediately when the season ended, went to work with these throwing specialists and he was doing these special exercises and essentially retraining his brain on how to throw football. And that's part of the reason he got drafted, was teams liked the overhauled mechanics. Dorian Thompson-Robinson's another guy where I'm like, well, he didn't look this good throwing the football on TV. Is it just TV versus in person? Like, what's going on? I go back and look. No, he's definitely working on his mechanics. And he said he's been working with Jordan Palmer, quarterback's coach.
He was out there too, right? Palmer?
Was it? I didn't. He might have been. I honestly wasn't like, he might have been. I might have missed him. I'm not saying he wasn't. But if somebody else reported he was there, I'm not saying that person was.
I thought I saw a picture of him there.
Okay. Well, the fact he's working with Thompson Robinson, he might have been. But this is another thing with Shorter where it's like he dominated. He was excellent. So, okay. Is it the level of competition? Did we miss something on the Florida tape? Is he doing something different? I got to get into all that. Like, I don't have the answer. You probably have a better answer than me. You said you watched him at Florida. I haven't gotten that part yet. I wanted to check in on some of these other guys first, but that's kind of the biggest thing from this week for, Zay's a first round pick. Zay Flowers is what he is, but these other guys, a lot of these other guys, it's more so just get on the radar. Right. Can you get your name on Twitter? Can you get your name on these kind of shows? Obviously with the scouts is the big one, but it's all agenda driven.
That's when you start to look at people. Right. Exactly.
Right. It's all agenda driven. Right. So a guy like Demario Douglas, a guy like Justin Shorter, we'll get to some of these other guys too. They got their names on the radar and we'll see where it goes from there.